Hey everybody, Chris, the old ass retro gamer here once again. I think I got my microphone down a little too low. Back again with another part of my video game collection live streams, going over the remaining Super Nintendo games in my collection right now. And why am I doing this? Because, well, why not? No, it's because just in case something happens, it's nice to have a visual record of everything you have in your collection. So I've been going over everything that I own currently. You might have seen some pickup videos. Some of the games I did or I showed off in those pickup videos might not even be in my collection anymore. So if you're keeping track, some might have come, some might have gone. So, like I said, I'm also just doing this because it's good to have just a straight up visual record of everything. So last time I showed off all of 8 of my Super Famicom games, but I do have some reproductions in here. I think at least one homebrew. I think. Yeah, just one, yeah. But I do have some repros. But this is everything remaining in my Super Nintendo collection. What is up, Krillin? So let's get into it. Starting off with Maximum Carnage. Picked this up at the Midwest Gaming Classic, I want to say 3 years ago. I was holding off buying it because the guy that was selling it had it up past the price I was willing to pay. And I figured I'd wait until the end of the convention, on Sunday, since I think those are the only days. Those are the 2 years. The first 2 years are the only ones where I went on Sunday only instead of the whole weekend. So I was like, it's Sunday, right before the convention closes. How about you just hit that guy back up and try to get a deal? Chilling like a villain. Same here, brah. I'm getting too much light off my bald ass head. There we go. A little too dark. And I think he was asking like 65 for this when I got there, and I talked him down to 45. So I had this back in the day. This is that red cartridge. I had this back in the day. I thought it was pretty cool. I like the fact that the music was provided by Green Jello. It says Green Jelly on the packaging here because they were sued by whatever corporation it is that owns Jello, and were forced to change their name to Green Jelly instead because Jello is trademarked. And it's really fun beat 'em up. You get to play as either Spider-Man or Venom, and you come across like all these characters from the Marvel Universe, like Captain America, and I think Morbius is in it. There's a couple pictures on the back here. Carnage is in here. Black Cat, Iron Fist, Deathlock, I think Cloak and Dagger, Doppelganger, Hobgoblin. Yeah, Cloak and Dagger. Sweet. I don't remember seeing those guys in this, but whatever. It's a great beat 'em up. It's by Eljan, but I don't care. I enjoy beat 'em ups, and this one's a pretty good one. Mech Warrior is next. Yeah. There's a Mech Warrior style game on the Genesis. I showed it off last time. I think it goes, it's Battletech. Yeah, I have that one too. This one is like a first-person shooter version of that, where you're inside of a mech and you're shooting other mechs, and it's actually kind of strange. I kind of like the isometric view of the Genesis game. This one's different. It's really cool. It's really ambitious. I will give it that, but whatever. Mechs blowing up other mechs. What's not to love? Okay, so get this. I did a video on this a long time ago. I think it was like right after my girlfriend and I broke up. I stopped doing videos, and the first video I did as like a comeback after that was to talk about this. So if you were watching the first part of this Super Nintendo live stream from last week, I talked about T-Scran Vigat, which was Trade, Sell, Collect Retro Video Games and Toys. It was a Facebook group that was also a raffle, or a raffle site. And what they would do was people who wanted to sell their games someplace other than eBay would go to this T-Scran Vigat page and put their stuff up for auction through the guys that would run it. And depending on how much they wanted for the game, like the one I talked about last Thursday, was Earthbound. The guy wanted like $800 for it. What is up, Matt Wheaton? More awesome SNES games. Hello, yes. Yes. This is a pretty shitty Halloween in the Chicagoland. It has been snowing all damn day. It stopped maybe an hour ago. We got, I think, 3 inches. It sucked. I feel bad for those kids that actually thought there was trick-or-treating tonight. I don't think there actually is. I think they did it over the weekend. Well, whatever. Or maybe this weekend. I'm not sure. But say someone who wants to sell their Earthbound, they want $800 for it. They tell the people at the group, hey, I want $800 for this. So how many tickets do you want to sell? And for how much? So to get to that $800, they would say, we're going to sell 200 tickets at so much money a ticket. And that all equals up to $800. With Earthbound, the tickets were $5 each. I bought 3 tickets. So I spent $15 and I won an $800 game. So the first time I ever did anything on that group, it was right after I first learned about it. I was just starting to really build up a collection, and these 3 games popped up in a lot on that page. And I said, oh, that'd be so cool if I could actually get those. They are so freaking expensive. I couldn't afford them on my own, on their own. One goes for, the first one in the series is decently expensive. The second one, wow. The third one, holy shit. And to get all 3 at once would be great. So I bid on them. I think I bought 5 tickets, and they were $3 each, again equaling out to $15. It's hot here, made up for like 82. Oh, 82. It was 35 all day here in Chicago, and it snowed. I left the house really early this morning to go to work, and it was snowing slush. It was like snow rain. And when I left work, it was really coming down. It was just flat out snow. The roads were okay, but it was not nice. The visibility was really bad. But anyway, so I paid $15 in tickets. I got 5 of them at $3 each, and tuned into the live stream where they would pull the winner. And I was just sitting there, and I had gotten up to get something, and as I'm walking away, I hear Christopher Pico, and what? First time I'd ever done anything on that page, and I won. And what was it that I won? Mega Man X, Mega Man X2, and Mega Man X3. All in the same time. And the funny thing is, the guy that I won these from lives up north in Illinois, in like Zion. That's almost on the Wisconsin border. And shipped them to me like overnight, and I got them the next day. I had actually like sit out on my porch waiting for the mailman to come because there was a signature required, and the postal people around here don't wait. They just kind of like, if you're not there, when they show up, and they don't even knock on your door, they just walk away and leave you a note saying come and pick it up at the post office. So I was sitting out on my porch, and these showed up, and holy crap, I got all 3 Mega Man X games for the Super Nintendo at once. This is probably $2,000 worth of games in my hand right here. Or at least pretty close to it. But side-scrolling action games, this is like a beginning of a new series where you're not really playing as the Mega Man from the original NES games. You're playing as a different one, and I cannot remember what his name. He's got a different name. Shit. I cannot remember. It's been a long time since I played these, and I have not played them that much. I actually had Mega Man X back in the day when it first came out. I was a decent Mega Man fan. I gave up after Part 4 on the NES series, but like playing a new version of it on the Super Nintendo, I thought was going to be great. So I bought this, and I was like, it's okay, and I never really got into it. Never bought any of the other games, but I've played them on the collections that have come out for like the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube and all that. So I do enjoy them, but just to have the original versions of these and not the collection versions, I actually had the original way that they were released, is pretty awesome. And the fact that I got them for so goddamn cheap. The guy that I won those from actually like messages me on Facebook every once in a while. You still have my Mega Man games? Like, dude, you got paid for them. Shut up. It's like the PS1 Mega Man game is better than this. I haven't played any of the PlayStation ones. I have one of them for the PS2. I think it's Mega Man X8. Might be wrong. Don't prefer them. Yeah, I never really got into them like everyone else seemed to. Okay, let's keep on going. Spent way too much time talking about that. Michael Jordan, Chaos in the Windy City. I'm a Chicago person. I have to have this. It's the most ridiculous premise for a game ever. You play as Michael Jordan. You're trying to rescue all of your basketball, not your teammates, but like other basketball players who've been kidnapped by, I cannot remember who. Dr. Max Cranium. Whatever. And you throw fire basketballs and ice basketballs, and to get powered up, you have to, like, there's, like, for some reason, everywhere you go, there's, like, a hoop, and if you dunk a ball, you can get a power-up. But the funny thing is, this game is cheesy, and it's a weird idea. It's actually pretty fun, which surprised the hell out of me. I was like, oh, I should get all these games that are, like, are about Chicago, you know, since I live here. And I was expecting this to be a piece of crap. I avoided it back in the day when it first came out. But you know what? Call me pleasantly surprised. This game's actually a lot of fun. Really cool side-scrolling action game. Okay, so not something I was into back in the day, but for some reason I keep on buying all the games, you know, currently. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I keep confusing the games for the Super Nintendo with the games for the Genesis. This one is a side-scrolling beat-em-up. And I keep on thinking that the one based on the TV show for the Genesis is the beat 'em up. That one is the one-on-one fighter. The the Power Ranger movie game is the side-scrolling beat 'em up. There's both of the games for the Super Nintendo. This one and the movie-based game are beat 'em ups. And there was one called, like, what is it, Power Rangers Tournament Fighters or something, which is the one-on-one game, the one-on-one fighting game. This game is easy as hell. I had never played it back in the day, and I picked it up off of a guy on Facebook, and the day it showed up, I played through it in one sitting without dying once. Okay. It's not bad. It's just super easy. It's a game for kids. What do you want? Okay, here we go. One of my favorite video game, or my favorite video game franchise of all time. We got the Mortal Kombats. This one is it says Competition Edition, but there is no competition. The Genesis version won out. No contest. Contest that fighting game. Yeah, this one had to be censored in the extreme to pass Nintendo's like rules about violence and whatnot. So all the blood became sweat. The fatalities are gimped. Like when Kano goes to rip your heart out, he basically like puts his hand on your chest and then you die. What do he do? Give you a heart attack? Yeah, it kind of stinks. It looks the best out of all of the games that came out for this generation, you know, that are based on the original arcade game. It looks the best. It sounds the best. It plays the worst. You know, there's not even a code in here to make it blood, or to give the blood, which kind of stinks. But whatever. Had to have it. But you got my favorites, the Mortal Kombat 2, and you might be like going, Chris, what's with all the writing on it? What'd you do? Soul Calibur better? I like Soul Calibur, but Mortal Kombat 2 is my jam. Mortal Kombat 3 I'm not that big into. So, over the years, I have met people who worked on this game, since it is my favorite fighting game of all time, my second favorite game of all time. Trains. So who have I met? So, there's stories involved. I've talked about them in different videos over the years. So I've gotten Daniel Pesina, who plays Johnny Cage, as well as all the ninja characters like Reptile and Scorpion and Sub-Zero. I have met Dr. Philip Ahn, MD, who played Shang Tsung. I have met John Parrish, who plays Jax. And I met Anthony Marquez, who plays Kung Lao. And that was at last year's Midwest Gaming, this year's Midwest Gaming Classic was where I met Kung Lao. And last year's is where I met Jax. John, the guy who plays Johnny Cage, Danny Pesina, was there last year also, as well as Philip Ahn, but since I already have their autographs, I was not asking for them. When I met Philip Ahn and Daniel Pesina, I met them originally way back when this game was first released on the home consoles. There was a video game store in the burbs that I used to go to all the time. It's where I got my 3DO, where I sold all my Genesis and Sega CD stuff like I've talked about in those live streams. And they had some pull with the people at Midway and convinced Daniel Pesina and Philip Ahn to show up to promote the game at the store by doing autographs for free. All you had to do is buy like a poster or whatever. If that's, I think it's the only thing you really had to pay for was if you wanted to get a poster signed. But I brought my copy of the game. But a friend of mine bought the poster, and it came with 2 posters. He gave me one of them, and he kept the other one. I got mine signed as well. And I did get the poster signed by the guys also that I've met at the Midwest Gaming Classic. Got up to Philip on first, and I was a real shy kid back then. I had kind of like social anxiety. I'm completely over that stuff now. But I was really shy, and I didn't want to talk all that much, and I just figured, I'll just say, hey, how you doing? Get my autographs, get out. So got to Philip on. He asked me how I was doing. I was like, hey, fine. I'm a big fan of, the Shang Tsung character. I play as him and Johnny Cage almost exclusively. And he was like, oh, that's great. There you go. Nice meeting you. And I move on to Johnny Cage. Get to him, and he goes, hey, how you doing? I said, hey, how's it going? And he goes, so who's your favorite character? And I was like, I was just telling, Philip over here that you and him are my favorite characters. And he kind of looked at me like, what? And I go, Johnny Cage and Shang Tsung are my favorite characters in the game, the 2 of you. And it kind of goes like, what? Well, most people just call us by our characters' names. That's the dumbest answer I've ever heard. And, being this shy kid who's afraid someone's going to say something nasty to them, how do you react? I kind of went, what? Did I do something wrong? I didn't say that. I just kind of to myself, I'm like, did I do something wrong? And I could have sworn, don't quote me on it, he mumbled something under his breath. And what it sounded like to me was he said retard. And I was pissed. I kind of snapped he was signing my poster, I think, at that point. He had already signed this, and when he said that, he was signing my poster, and the moment that marker came off the poster, I basically snatched it away from him and walked out. And my friend outside, who knows people at Midway, and who's the one who told me about this Software Junction store having, the Mortal Kombat actors there, he's waiting for me outside. And he's like, so what's going on? And I told him what happened, and he goes, yeah, he can be kind of a jerk sometimes. And he goes, did you recognize the 2 girls? I forgot to mention, there were 2 girls sitting behind Johnny Cage and Shang Tsung. And I go, no, I didn't. And he goes, those were the actresses that played Sonya in the first game and Melina and Katana in the second. And the thing was, when he said what I thought was, retard, they started giggling like crazy. And I was just kind of like, assholes, to myself. And, I was like, oh, great. So not only did he insult me to my face, he, made these girls giggle because I guess they're jerks too. So I really had a thing against Daniel Pesina forever. Ever since then, I was like, I don't like playing as Johnny Cage in these games. Screw that guy. When he got fired from Mortal Kombat for doing those ads for Bloodstorm, I was like, good riddance. And when I saw him at last year's Midwest Gaming Classic, I avoided him at all costs. The room that they were signing in, I got there a little too early, and their signing room was in an arcade in the convention hall. And I played Death Smiles on the arcade, waiting for them to show up. And when they did show up, I kept playing because I was trying to hear if he was treating people the way he treated me back in the day. But he wasn't. He was being super nice. The moment they said, can I get a picture? He was like, shit, yeah, let me put my Scorpion outfit on and get in the pose and do the splits. And he was just being super accommodating. I'm like, that's weird because I remember him being kind of a jerk. And I've heard over the years from people saying that he's the nicest guy. And I'm like, well, not when I met him. So went over there, talked to John Parrish because he was the only person I hadn't met yet that was on their little table where they were signing everything. And John Parrish asked me when he saw that this had already been signed by those 2 guys and my poster had been signed by them, he goes, where'd you get this? And I said, oh, this was done back in 1994 or whatever, whenever it was, 93, when the game first came out. And he goes, I met these guys at this store called Software Junction. And he heard me. Daniel Pesina heard me say Software Junction. He goes, Software Junction? And I go, yeah. And he goes, that was a store that was in Buffalo Grove, right? And I said, yeah, it was. It's not there anymore. And he goes, I remember doing a signing there. And I said, yeah, I was there. And I met you and Philip on. He goes, holy crap, you're one of us. You're just as old as we are. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. And he jumped up and wanted to shake my hand. And he was being super friendly. And then all I did was ask John Parrish if I could get a picture. And Daniel Pesina would just jumped up, put his sunglasses on, and was like, no, we're all doing it. And they all wanted to, and the thing was, Philip Bond was the one being kind of a dick that day. He looked like he didn't even want to be there. He was just kind of staring off into space, I can't wait for this convention to be over. I want to go home. So when Daniel Pesina jumps up, we're going to take a picture with this guy. Philip Bond wasn't paying attention. He slapped him across the shoulder and goes, "Get up, picture time." And I have the picture. I think I have it on my Facebook page. I put it in the video where I talked about the Midwest Gaming Classic last year. Super nice guy. I don't know what the problem was. He did kind of say something afterwards. He goes, "Yeah, Software Junction. I remember not being in the best mood that day." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, really? Tell me about it." But I have since forgiven him. He actually is a very, very nice person and very generous and accommodating. And like he loves the fact that people still love Mortal Kombat. And that's awesome because I still love Mortal Kombat, so great. And he's got a dojo here in Chicago. I should go over there and try to get in shape. Be like, "Show me, Johnny Cage. Show me how to lose the moves, okay?" But the game is great. My favorite Mortal Kombat game. And also Mortal Kombat 3, which is not my favorite Mortal Kombat game. Anyway, spent way too much time talking about that also. Okay, so NBA Jam. Friend and I, same friend that I went to meet Daniel Pacina. I went with to go see Daniel Pacina and Philip Bond. And I used to play, my friend Gary, we used to play this all the time. We would just trash talk each other while we were playing two-player like you would not believe. It was so fun. And I think that's one of the reasons why I still have like a thing for these games, because I'm not a sports game person at all. But playing this was a ton of fun. And this was around that same time where the Bulls were like always winning the championships. So like when it would roll around, we'd play this again. You know, whenever the Bulls were in the championships again, we'd start playing the crap out of this. Super fun game. Let's be all together. What's going on, Saru? Did that make up for him being a jerk? Yes, it did. Like I said, he said he was in a bad mood that day, so I was like, okay, well, you know what? Yeah, you kind of were, because you were being a jerk, and he made up for it. Anyway. We're a bunch of old fucks here, guys. No Escape. Picked this up at last year's Midwest Gaming Classic. I wanted this because not only do I like the movie, it was the guy who directed GoldenEye and Casino Royale. This was the first movie he ever directed, as far as I can remember, with Ray Liotta and Ernie Hudson. It's a pretty cool movie. I enjoy it. But also because it's developed by Psygnosis, which I'm trying to get all the Psygnosis games, you know, at least their console games. And it's a side-scrolling, you know, action game. It's kind of like playing Alien 3 a little bit. The Super Nintendo version of Alien 3. It's pretty cool. It's not the greatest thing ever, but it's entertaining. Stop by to drop a lake. Gotta go get ready for have an awesome stream. No, thank you very much, Sorry. Thanks for stopping by. I know a guy that has met the announcer for NBA Jam. Yes, he was at the Midwest Gaming Classic. Oh, no. Was it? Yes, it was. Yes, he was at the Midwest Gaming Classic this past year also. Or this year. He was actually at the same table as Anthony Marquez when I met him this year. And I forgot to talk about Anthony Marquez. That guy is so nice, and so is John Parrish. Anthony Marquez was, like, super excited to just be recognized as Kung Lao. Like, he was, like, the moment you walked up to his table, he didn't even care if you were there to talk about Mortal Kombat or not. He was just like, "How's it going, bro? How's it going, dude? What's going on? Let's talk. Let's chit-chat. Yeah." He was so nice. But Phalanx, I avoided this game back in the day because look at that cover. To, like, a 19-year-old, that's dumb. That's, like, dumb. So I avoided it, even though I wasn't really into shmups back then. So I avoided it for that reason also. But nowadays, I like the shmups. And that cover, to me, now, is hilarious. So I really actively went trying to get a copy of this game. Found it on eBay. Couldn't find it anywhere locally, so I was just like, screw it, just get it on eBay. And I did. I got it at a pretty decent price. I think I paid like $35 for it or something. And it's a super freaking hard shmup. But I like it. It's cool. Like I said, that cover is awesome. Whoever came up with that idea is a goddamn genius. Pilot Wings, one of the earliest Super Nintendo games. This was, I think, the second or third game I bought for my Super Nintendo when I got it. And it still holds up. It's kind of like, it's not really a game. It's like a bunch of mini games that kind of repeat. You got like a biplane. It's all about flying. You got one mini game where you're playing a guy that's on a rocket pack. You got one where you're gliding around on a hang glider. One where you're like in an ultralight helicopter, and when you're in a biplane, and you have to do all these tasks. The ones with the parachuting are pretty fun because you have to, like, as you're falling, you have to go through rings and then release your parachute and try to land in a target, and it's kind of like a bullseye thing. It is simple, but it is super fun, and like I said, it still holds up. I am not a fan of the Nintendo 64 version of this at all. Well, maybe I'll talk about when I get to my Nintendo 64 collection. Hi, bye, Krillin. Joel from Media Glitch met him. Oh yeah, yeah. He, I didn't talk to him at the Midwest Gaming Classic, the NBA Jam guy, but he seemed pretty nice. A lot of the people that I was hanging out with at the convention really wanted to talk to him and met him, and got him to say something in that voice for their YouTube channels. Shmups are great. Einhander, I love it. When I had to sell all my games when I lost my job in 2011, there were certain games I was not willing to get rid of, and Einhander was one of them. Trust me, that game is awesome. What's up, Black Metal Gamer? How's it going? My voice cracked there. What the? Am I going through puberty again? Jesus. I think I already own this game in Super Famicom form. I do believe this is the one that I got at Half Price Books, but whatever. I need to double check that. Ranma 1/2 Hard Battle, based on an anime it was one of the first anime I ever got into back in the early 90s, where you play, well, the show is about a guy and his dad. This guy named Ranma, his dad is named Genma. Genma had set up a marriage for his son Ranma when he was a little kid. And the show opens up with them going to meet Ranma's future wife. And the thing is, Genma and Ranma have both been cursed. They're martial artists. They like to practice on their travels. They heard about this cursed spring where it has all these puddles, and there's bamboo stalks sticking out of each puddle. And that's where people go to train, where they jump from bamboo stalk to bamboo stalk trying to knock each other off. The only thing is, each of these puddles that has a bamboo stalk sticking out of it, someone died in those puddles. And if you fall into that puddle, you will be cursed by that person. So whenever you get hit by cold water, you will turn into that other person that died. When you get hit by hot water, you turn back into yourself. Ranma falls into a puddle that a young girl died in. So whenever he gets hit with cold water, he turns into a buxom girl, but has all of his memories. It's the same. It's Ranma, just in female form. His dad fell into one where a panda drowned, and he turns into a panda when he gets hit with cold water. And it turns out everyone in this town where Ranma's future fiance lives has fallen into a puddle there. One guy turns into a pig. One guy turns into a duck. One girl turns into a cat. It's crazy. It's like a sex comedy, because whenever Ranma's about to get some, he always ends up getting wet and turning into a girl, and, oh, sorry. But it's a really funny, quirky show. It's based on a manga. The game is a one-on-one fighting game because the TV show was a series in Japan, is all about martial arts, so obviously it's a fighting game. It's a really slow fighting game, but it's fun. And they got the characters all right. I mean, all their moves and stuff make sense with the character. BMG in the house. What's up? Here we go. Rival Turf. Probably the worst box art ever. Yep. 90s tough guys. Whatever. This is a ripoff of Final Fight, but it's a fun ripoff of Final Fight. I can't complain. The graphics are not that great, and the controls are a little loose, but I enjoy it. I mean, it's just like, if you want to just play something real quick, I just pop this in a lot of the times. Why did I buy this? I don't know. RoboCop 3. You can see how much I bought it for. Can you see? $14.99. It's a game based on RoboCop by Ocean. They do not have a good track record with games in general, but especially with RoboCop, because they can't make their games control well at all. All the main characters you play as in Ocean games feel like they're walking around on ice. I hate it, but I keep buying their games because I'm dumb. Mostly because I'm a license whore. But it's a side-scrolling run and gun. It's okay. The movie is god-awful. The game is actually better than the movie. This one is awesome. Hang on a second. I got a stack of games that are about to fall over. Don't do it! Do not do it. Come on! This one's awesome. I might have to take it out of the slipcase for this. Or the protector. RoboCop versus Terminator. This is almost the same game that came out on the Genesis. Almost. It's just a little bit different. Obviously, all the violence has been taken out. But the reason why I got this, even though I do prefer the Genesis version, is because of this box. This box is this hard plastic shell that has like been engraved, and it looks like a CPU of a Terminator. That is awesome. And because the the box doesn't fit the manual has to be folded in half to fit inside, which is amazing. Yeah, okay. But the game is cool. It's a run and gun also, where you play as RoboCop and you're starting off, fighting people like gangbangers and stuff, and you move on to Terminators and all that, and you eventually take on Skynet. The game is awesome, especially on the Genesis because of all the gore. But this one is pretty cool too. Obviously, the graphics and the music are a lot better on the Super Nintendo, but this box makes it worthwhile. And from what I understand, finding the box complete like this is a real chore. Like, it's hard to find. I've had a hard time finding it. Got this at the Midwest Gaming Classic this year from Cardboard Zero, who used to host the Game Tenants podcast with Church from the Game Grinder. He was selling a bunch of games because he wanted to go back to college, and he was trying to sell a lot of his higher price things. He had Popful Mail on his table at the convention. I almost bought it. But instead I got this, Secret of Evermore, and another game that's coming up next. I saw that he had these Squaresoft RPGs that I've always wanted to play. And Secret of Evermore was always one that I wanted. This is more of an action RPG instead of a straight-up, typical Square RPG. You play as this kid who gets transported to... I don't know if it's supposed to be you're in the future or what, but you get transported somewhere else, like another dimension. I don't know what it is. I can't remember. And your dog comes with you. And your dog becomes like a giant, saber wolf. And you end up, taking on monsters and stuff like that. The graphics are fantastic, and I love the music. I mean, look at that stuff. That is awesome. I played it for a good long while when I was capturing footage when I was planning on doing a edited video about the Midwest Gaming Classic 2019. But I ended up scrapping that. But I had a ton of fun playing this, and I really need to set aside some time to play more of it. Also picked up from Cardboard Zero, Secret of Mana. Never played this one back in the day either. The only Square RPGs I ever bought were the Final Fantasy games, and I only bought Part 2 and Mystic Quest back then. I never had Part 3. But this is another action RPG, but you play as 3 characters at once, and I think you can do multiplayer. Can you do multiplayer with this? Multiplayer capability, yep, you can. Also got a remake on the PlayStation 4, which everyone either loves or hates. And since I have absolutely no history, I have no nostalgia for this at all, it does not matter to me, as long as the game is fun to play. Okay, here's a repro of a game that was never officially released. And I did a review of this on my channel years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago. And that is of The Shadow, the Alec Baldwin movie. And look, oh, yeah, Ocean, yay. Honestly, this is probably one of the best games Ocean ever made, and it never got released. It's a beat-em-up that feels like you're playing Batman Returns, the beat-em-up for the Super Nintendo, and it is actually pretty cool. I really enjoy it. I got the cart only from the Cartridge Arcade on Etsy when I was always talking about that in the Genesis live stream. I got the cartridge from Etsy on the Cartridge Arcade's page, and the box on the Uncle Tusk page. Uncle Tusk does manuals. They do repros also, but they do mostly manuals and boxes and maps if a game needs to come with a map or something like that. And I keep putting this in the wrong freaking side. Okay, so as a beat 'em up, this is fantastic. And the only thing is, I think that the version that I got on the cartridge is the one that's 99.8% complete, because there's a glitch. Certain characters will, as they're walking towards you, will turn to static as they're walking towards you. It doesn't affect the game in any way, it just looks weird. But as a beat 'em up, it's actually really, really fun, and the music is fantastic. Never got released because the movie was a bomb. Shadowrun, freaking awesome action RPG. I had this back in the day. A friend of mine, my friend Charlie from Epic Die Studios, he might show up in the chat tonight at some point. Really was into the tabletop RPG of Shadowrun. He's into RPGs in general, the tabletop stuff like Dungeons and Dragons and all that. And he picked this one up, and I was watching him play it for a while, and I was like, I need that game in my life. And it is so cool and so good that we ended up making a fan film based on this game. A feature-length movie. It was 98 minutes long based on this game. No one will ever see it because it is god-awful. It was horrible. We made it like basically for my first year of college was going to college and making that movie for a whole year. But it's like an isometric action RPG, cyberpunk. I love cyberpunk. It's one of my favorite things in the world next to Star Trek. And I love it. I was streaming this for a little while on YouTube and on Twitch, I think. And Hungry Garaya just recently beat this on Twitch. And she absolutely loved it. Now she wants to go and play the Genesis game. Which is saying a lot, because that game is not one of my favorites. I need to play it again, though, because I'm talking about from my thoughts on it from back in the day. Shaq Fu. Don't judge me. Yeah. I like the developer of this game. Delphine, they did Flashback, The Quest for Identity on the Genesis, and every port that came out for every other console. Ew. I like this one more than the Genesis game. When people bitch about the Shaq Fu, everyone seems to always want to talk about the Genesis game. No one really talks about this one. They're not exactly the same game. I mean, it's the same concept, but each one was developed a little bit differently. This one is a lot faster, and it controls a lot better. I mean, it's not a great game. I'm not going to say it's good, but this one is actually playable, and like I have fun with it as like a guilty pleasure. The Genesis one, on the other hand, is awful. Like everything about it is awful. I don't know what the hell happened there between that one and this one. I don't get it. But this one's not too bad as far as I'm concerned. There we go. Stay. Here's a repro I got that cost a lot of money, but I wanted it because of what it is. And that is Shin Megami Tensei. This is a repro of the original game that came out for the Super Famicom. There's actual Famicom games for this also, which I need to track down at some point. But I got this from Fishy Faced Games, and if you saw last week's live stream where I was talking about the first half of my Super Nintendo collection, at the very end I was like, hey, there's this thing I left out of the Nintendo collection video, and I showed off that awesome SimCity collector's edition that I bought, the repro of the SimCity for the NES. Well, same company that made this, and the guy that puts these together really puts a lot of work behind him. Not only does the box look like the real deal, but I mean, like, this manual in itself, look how thick that is. And it's in full color. That is awesome. And even the cartridge looks freaking amazing. And I am so glad that I picked this up because I never heard anything about Shin Megami Tensei back in the day. I never knew anything about Persona. You know, that shows you how out of the loop I really was back then. Wasn't into any of that kind of stuff. But when I got back into collecting in 2013, I started learning about all this stuff and really became interested. Picked up one for the DS, one of these games for the DS, and I really enjoyed it. And from then on, I've been just collecting all of them, as many as I possibly can. So I definitely need to look up those NES or Famicom Shin Megami Tensei games. But this is an RPG. There's overworld stuff. Mostly it's like a dungeon crawler. And you have a lot of those demons that you need to, like, you have a demon that you can attack with and all that. And there's not a whole lot of the relationship stuff as there are like in the Persona games. But this game is fantastic. I absolutely love it. I don't think he makes them anymore. That's the thing. Missing bits. It's blown up. What's blown up? SimCity, another one of the early SNES games. This is one of my favorite games from back when the SNES was first released. This was also one of the first games I ever bought for the console. And I never thought I'd be into like one of these simulation type games where you're like building a town. It is like Nintendo just was onto something when they licensed this from I can't remember that guy's name. Maxis, I think, is the company. But they turned it into something that is really playable. You would think that you would need a mouse. It's really playable with the Super Nintendo controller, and it's fun, and it holds your interest for, at least for me, for a long time. And I have a lot of fun. I still play this. When I had a Super Nintendo emulator on my phone, my smartphone, the first game I downloaded was this because I said playing that on my phone anywhere I want is actually sounds like a lot of fun, and it was. I'd be playing it everywhere. I'd be playing it at work, I'd be playing it on trips, playing it on the toilet. It's great. Soul Blazer. So I was talking about this series the last video on Thursday, because I brought up Illusion of Gaia. This Illusion of Gaia, Soul Blazer, and another game that I'll talk about later are part of a trilogy of games, and I think Soul Blazer is the first game in the series, because I think it's called the Soul Blazer Trilogy. It's a trilogy of action RPGs that I don't think are directly connected, but like the theme of them are connected. And I played this one back in the day. I watched my friend Gary play through this one, and I said, kind of want that one. Got it pretty late. I remember I got this on discount somewhere. I was like on clearance or something. And I didn't spend a lot of time playing it, but what I did play, I really liked it, and I got pretty far in it. And it's pretty cool. I like this one a lot. Square Enix. That's the thing, is like, you got this trilogy of games, and each one was released by a different company. So you really wouldn't know that they're connected unless somebody had told you. Like, I didn't know that until 2014 or whatever it was. Spider-Man and the X-Men in Arcade's Revenge. My friend Charlie from Epic Die Studios picked this one up back in the day, and I watched him play it a little bit, and I said, I need it. I don't care if it's LJN. I need it. The music in this game is amazing. Like truly amazing. I think it's the Folins did the music for this. It's a Jeff Folin and his brother. It's great. I mean, there are no real guitar sounds in this, but it sure sounds like there's some real guitars playing in some of the songs. But you start off playing as Spider-Man. You're trying to defuse all these bombs, and once that level is over, you end up being able to play as the X-Men too. So you can play as Wolverine, Gambit, Storm, or Cyclops, and Spider-Man in a new series of levels, and each one is a specific theme, all based around arcade and is like circus freak shit. And it's really fun. It's really tough. Like Gambit's level, I can only make it like maybe 45 seconds into that level before I'm dead. It is hard. Spider-Man's stuff is probably the easiest, and Spider-Man's and Wolverine stuff is probably the easiest. Storm has an underwater level that is really tough. Cyclops' stuff where he's like in these tunnels and there's like mine carts and stuff. He's like in a mine. That stuff is really tough. And Gambit's, Jesus, I don't know what the hell to make of that. But it's actually pretty fun. And regardless of me not being able to get very far in it, I play it all the time. Because I know eventually I'll be able to do it. I'll be able to beat it. But it's worth it for the music alone. Yeah, it was Maxis. I knew it was Maxis. I just can't remember the name of the guy that created it. That started that whole Sim series. Whatever. Star Fox, classic shmup. It's a 3D shmup. First game, I think, on the Super Nintendo to really just boast the fact that it's all about polygons and not pixels. And because it was one of the earliest ones and had this special Super FX chip to make that happen, the game runs kind of slow. But it was good back in the day because I wasn't used to playing games like that. So it going kind of slow-ish made sense and was kind of a good idea at the time. But it's classic. I videotaped myself, like through a VCR. I taped myself playing this because I was still working at Kmart back then. And we made a loop of it, and we had it playing on the TVs in the electronics department where I worked. So people would be interested in buying it. And it worked. The game sold like hotcakes because of that. It's good for showing off what the SNES can do. Yeah, unlike this one where they scrapped it because they're like, oh, the Nintendo 64 is coming out. We need to put more effort behind that and not really give a crap about the Super Nintendo anymore because they scrapped Star Fox 2. First time anybody really played this widely was able to play this was when the Super Nintendo Classic was released like a year or two ago. And this was a game that was put on that as like hey, you might want to buy this because you're going to get an exclusive game that was never really released to the public. There's been repros of this floating around forever, but none of them were like legit. Like it was, I think everyone was using like an incomplete ROM. This one I got off of an Etsy shop, and I do not remember the name of it because he did not put any markings on here. I think it might be on the back of the cart. When the Super NES Classic was released, he ripped it off the system and put it on a cartridge. So I have the Super Nintendo Classic version of this game on a cart, which is awesome. And the coolest thing about this is everything that it comes with. Not only is this box amazing, I mean, it looks like the real deal. Get out of there. Comes on this awesome custom cart, which is like metallic purple. And does it say on here who company it is? No, it does not. But this is called the Star Fox 2 Commemorative Edition. And this cost a pretty penny, but I was willing to pay for it because I really wanted to play it, and I did not want to have to buy a Super Nintendo Classic to get it. It also comes with the soundtrack on CD, a full-color manual, an extra label for the cart just in case that one falls off or whatever, and a poster. What? Like I said, this was totally worth the money. I love it. And the day it showed up, I popped this sucker in, and surprisingly enough, it works on my Retro Freak, which I didn't think it would, because this is not an official licensed game. A lot of the repros that I have do not like to work on my, or do not want to work on my Retro Freak. Hang on a second, let me put this stuff away. And my label fell. Get over here, bitch! There we go. But this one worked, and it plays fantastically. I love it. I love the fact that you're not just in an R-Wing, you're also like in that R-Wing with legs that runs around, and there's like ground-based levels. It's really, really fun. And it sucks that Nintendo was they were such dicks that they were like, yeah, don't give them that game on the Super Nintendo because we want to make sure everyone buys the version of it for the Nintendo 64. Trust me, if this had come out, it would probably have been way more excitement for the Nintendo 64 version. Trust me. People would have ate that shit up. And you guys know how much I love my Star Trek. Yeah, it was a demo version of it. There was a bunch of people that were selling it online, like a repro, the original version of Star Fox 2, like the incomplete one, which is why I never actually sprang for it. I knew there's a lot of people out there that were buying it, and I was like, no, like, because I had gotten the Shadow, which, like I said, was like 99.8% complete. I didn't want to buy something that was like a half of a game. So when the guy said that this is the complete version that Nintendo finished up, for the Super Nintendo Classic, I was like, yes, now you will get my money. But Star Trek is one of my favorite thing in the world. Before the stream tonight, I was sitting there watching Deep Space Nine, which Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Crossroads of Time for the Super Nintendo. This game's also available for the Genesis. They are the exact same game. There's no differences except graphical and like music quality. But this is a side-scrolling pseudo-platformer adventure game where you play as... You start off playing as Cisco. Let me see here. Because I remember you playing as somewhere else, too. No, you're playing as Cisco the whole time? Yeah. And you interact with Kira and Odo and Dr. Bashir and O'Brien and Dax and everybody. And there's even some side-scrolling shmups. There's like a mission structure, but there's like an overarching story that you're trying to solve. There's like a mystery, and there's all these little mini stories within that to, pad out the game. And yeah, there's some platforming. There's a little bit of like one of those cinematic platformers that are kind of like Flashback and Prince of Persia. There's even some shmup levels where you're in a runabout, which is awesome because this game is before they got the Defiant on the show. So it's like old school, first 2 seasons of Deep Space Nine, timeline. And you know what? The game is pretty fun. I didn't think it was going to be very good because I'm like, what can you do with Deep Space Nine? I like the fact Deep Space Nine is my favorite Star Trek show ever. But I mean, the fact remains that they're in a stationary place. What can you really do with that with a game? They found a way to do it by making it this really cool mystery, and you do end up going places, so I can't complain. It's really cool. I like this one a lot. This is one of those games that surprised the ever-loving hell out of me. And the theme is represented really well. The graphics in the game are great. The animations are great. It's fun. And it feels like Deep Space Nine. Then there's Star Trek The Next Generation, Futures Past. This also came out on the Genesis, but for some reason it has a different name. And there's slight changes to it. I think it's because the Super Nintendo can do certain things better than the Genesis, and the Genesis can do other things that the Super Nintendo doesn't do very well. Or maybe it's because the Genesis just couldn't do certain things, and things had to be cut. I don't know. But they're the exact same story, but the gameplay is different in the Genesis one. And there's like things that were removed, which makes no sense. I prefer this version of the game. This is an adventure game and kind of like a 3D shmup. when you're doing like your away team stuff. It's like in Legend of Zelda, the top-down view, and you have to put your away party together and make sure that you collect or you get the right kind of people for the task that you're doing. And then you'll get into starship battles all the time, and that's like in this 3D Wing Commander-esque on the bridge though shmup in space. It's pretty cool. You always end up fighting Romulans. But I enjoy it. It's not the best Star Trek Next Generation game. I think a Final Unity on the PC was probably my favorite one. But this one is pretty cool for a console game. And the last one I have for the Super Nintendo is Star Trek Starfleet Academy Starship Bridge Simulator. This isn't the greatest thing ever. I bought this back in the day because Star Trek. Yes, give me all the Star Trek things. Really cool, like foil box on all sides. Everything is shiny and reflective. All this really is a bunch of like simulations on the bridge. It takes place at the Academy. Obviously, it's in the title, and it's like you can do scenarios from The Wrath of Khan. You can do scenarios from Star Trek 6. You can do scenarios from Star Trek 3. And then there's like a little Kobayashi Maru type thing that you can do. But there's really not much to do in the game outside of that. So, is it worth the money that this cost back in the day? Because this does have polygon graphics, surprisingly. When it comes to the spaceships that you're seeing on your view screen, everything is a polygon instead of sprites, which is pretty cool. But there's not much to the game. But it's Star Trek, so I had to have it. Okay, so a lot of people streamed this over the summer, and a lot of them were whining about it. I don't care. I absolutely adore this game. It was one of my favorite games to play back in the day. The Kmart that I worked at hadn't gotten a lot of newer Super Nintendo games back when I was working there at one point. So a friend of mine, my friend Charlie from Epic Die Studio, lived near a mall, and I would give him money, and I'd be like, can you please go to the mall when you have some time, on your bike, because he could just ride his bike there, and like pick me up a new game, and I would tell him the games I was looking for. This was one of them because I liked the NES game, and when I heard that there was a Super Nintendo version out, at first I was kind of like, I don't know about this, but there was nothing else new out there to play, so I kind of took a chance on it, and I was like, I hope it doesn't suck. I hope it's not just like a 16-bit version or 16-bit like remake of the original game in the series. Nope, it's its own game, and I absolutely fell in love with it, and that is Super Adventure Island. Yuzo Koshiro composed the music for this game, and it is fan-frickin-tastic. Weird 90s techno with like an island beat. It's really, really cool. That underwater level music is fantastic. The graphics are great. I love the play control. Everyone complains about it being slower than the NES game. I don't care. This isn't the NES game. This is the Super Nintendo game. And you know what? It's fun. It's fun no matter what to me. I like the NES game, and I love the Super Nintendo game. This is one of my favorite games for the Super Nintendo. Haters can suck it. I'm going to get a drinky drink. Okay. Repro time. Last time, and I do also believe on the NES live streams that I was doing, I was talking about Time Walk Games, and how right when I got back into collecting and learned about the whole repro scene, Time Walk Games, I bought like 3 games from them, and then they shut down. They were like, yeah, we've been working too much. We don't get to see our families. Everyone wants repros. We're done. And I was kind of ticked off because there was a lot of games that I wanted from their website, and I didn't know where else I could get repros from at that point in time. I didn't know about Etsy and all that kind of stuff because I'm really not very tech savvy. Eventually, I found a guy selling repros on eBay. And one of the games that I wanted from Time Walk, this dude was selling, so I bought it. It was only the cartridge. Well, it was the cartridge and a box. The box the guy gave me was terrible. It was like this thick cardboard, like card paper or whatever it was. The stock that he was using to make the box was way too thick. It wouldn't fit inside a protector at all because it was too thick. And the print job on it was pretty bad too. Everything was like pixelated and it looked like shit. And it didn't come with a manual. So Uncle Tusk, once again, comes to save the day. I bought a new box and a manual through them. And I got a complete version of Super Back to the Future Part 2. I really like this game. I did a review of it on my channel a couple of years ago. It's fun. It's probably the best Back to the Future game we ever got on a console. And it's kind of sad that it never got brought out over here on the Super Nintendo. It stayed in Japan and I think Europe also. I don't know if it was a licensing thing or what, but it should have been brought out over here because it would have made everyone happy after like the NES, the 2 NES games, and the 1 Genesis game not being very good. This is a side-scrolling platformer where you play as Marty in the future. Well, you jump around, but you're basically Marty from the future, wearing the future outfit, and you're on that hoverboard. And you have to go and take out all the Biffs from all the different time periods. And it's a lot of fun. It's a little clunky. Sometimes the attacks don't work the way they should work. You kind of need to be moving in order to do the attack jump, because you attack by either doing like a flip, kind of like Sonic, or you can jump on things' heads, but you have to be doing that flip in the air to land on their head to kill them. If you are just doing a regular jump, like from standing, you will take damage. And it's kind of hard to gauge if you've been moving enough to get that attack jump. So a lot of times you'll take a cheap hit because you thought you were moving fast enough to do that kind of an attack and you don't. But it's a really fun game. The graphics are cool. It's kind of, they're called super deformed. Everyone has kind of a big head. And you better like the main theme from Back to the Future because you hear like 13 different variations of it in this game. But it's good. I like it. Check out my review. It's way in my backlog. Super Castlevania 4. This was the game that really prompted me to get off my butt, get a job, and get a Super Nintendo because I wanted to play this game so bad because my friend Gary picked it up. He had a Super Nintendo from day one because, his parents bought him whatever the hell he wanted. Not my parents. And once I saw him playing this, I watched him play it at his house, and I was like, yeah, I need it. I need to go get a Super Nintendo like right now. There's no question about it. Need it right now. And this was the first game I remember buying for my Super Nintendo. And it is fantastic. It's the natural evolution of Castlevania. It feels like Castlevania. It plays like Castlevania from the NES. And there's things that have been added to it. Like you can use your whip to swing now. You can latch onto certain things on the level and you can actually do a swing to get from one platform to the other. You can actually hold your whip out and flip it around. And kind of helps you deflect fireballs or whatever, the projectiles that are coming at you. Bosses are huge. There's levels that'll rotate around you. There's ones that feel like you're in a barrel that are spinning. It's just so many cool effects. It plays so well. The graphics are great. The sound, the music in this game is fantastic. I recorded the soundtrack on a tape, and I would listen to this all day long at school. Instead of paying attention to my teachers, I'd be listening to the music for this. But this is one of my all-time favorite games for the Super Nintendo. And then we got Super Double Dragon. I had this one back in the day. Didn't realize it was supposed to be Double Dragon 4. I just thought it was supposed to be a remake of the original game. Which is why I thought what I thought Super Adventure Island was going to be. Because of this. But no, this is supposed to be Double Dragon 4. And it's actually really fun. It's a little slow. But so were the original games. But it's like another natural step up to, or like 16-bit Double Dragon, what you would think a version of that would look like. It's a lot of fun. I like this one a lot, and the music is catchy as hell. Just another Double Dragon beat 'em up. And I do believe this also has 2-player co-op, I think. Does it? It doesn't say anything on the front. I can't remember because I've never played it 2-player, so I couldn't tell you. Super Mario Kart. Here's a franchise I never got into back in the day. I didn't get into Mario Kart until I started getting back into collecting in 2013. This is the first Mario Kart game I bought was Mario Kart DS. Never had any Mario Kart games before that, ever. So I completely missed out on, the multiplayer aspects of this, because you can do 4 players at once if you had that splitter for your Super Nintendo. I think it was 4-player. No. Yeah, I think it was. No, or is it 2-player? I can't remember. I think it is 2-player only. Shit. Like I said, I never played this back in the day. And I haven't played a 2-player nowadays either. But it's a kart racing game. One of the first kart racing games out there, if not the first. And it's a lot of fun. A lot of great Mode 7 effects and all the characters from all the Mario games in there. You can play as, Bowser and Peach and everything. Toad, who's awesome. And it's a lot of fun. And I am sad that I missed out on this series back in the day. Never got into it. We got Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars. When I did have this back in the day. I really enjoyed it. Beat it back in the day. Thing is, when I got back into collecting and I really, really, really wanted to get a copy of this, I bought it from a guy I did not realize was in Jamaica. And apparently, mailing things from Jamaica sucks. This took almost a month to get to me. From Jamaica. But this, I think, was one of the biggest cartridges. Yeah, a huge 32 meg cartridge. God damn. Oh, Super Mario RPG is so good. I never thought that Square and Nintendo would ever get together and do like a little collaboration game like this. And they did, and it works. It feels like Final Fantasy Mystic Quest with Mario in it. Because it's not like it's not like a true Final Fantasy type game where it's like hardcore. It's pretty easy. And there's like attacks you can do where if like you hit the attack button like right when Mario jumps on an enemy's head, you can do some extra damage. You know, stuff like that to make it feel unique. And it works. It's got I think this is all 3D rendered graphics also, and it's kind of like Killer Instinct and Donkey Kong Country. And it's fantastic. It's great. Captain Algebra streamed this not too long ago, and he beat it like in the space of like, what, 3 or 4 sessions, I think. But I love it. It's one of my favorite RPGs out there. And we've kind of been getting sequels in the Mario and Luigi series, but there's never been like an official Super Mario RPG 2. But the Mario and Luigi series, I think, is supposed to be like that continued. It's just not in name. Super Metroid, probably one of my favorite games of all time. This was in my top 10 video games of all time video that I did like years ago when I hit 50 videos. Yeah, I was not into Metroid at all back in the day. I was not a big fan. I mean, I thought the first one was okay. Did not like the second game on the Game Boy at all. And I was really hesitant to even consider buying this. And then I went to this game store by where I used to live. It was called Die Hard Game Fan. And the owner was a kind of a nice guy. His son was a little shit. His son would actually rag on you in front of his dad. He would rag on the customers because of what they would buy. If you bought something he didn't like, he would basically call you an idiot, and the dad would be like, this is my kid. And I'd be like, I want to kick your kid right in the goddamn throat. Tell him to shut the fuck up. But I went in there one day to look around and see what was new, and they had this on like one of their little test stations. And I was watching somebody play, and I was like, yeah, that looks kind of cool. And then the owner saw me start watching, and he started just telling me all about it and how it's like the best game on the Super Nintendo right now. It is so good. And I was like, all right, fine, I'll pick it up. And yeah, he was not kidding. At the time, this was probably, after ActRaiser, my favorite Super Nintendo game that I'd ever played. I played through it so many times. I would do like speed runs. It was the only game I ever attempted to do a speed run for. And if I wouldn't do it, I would start over and do it again. I love this game. It's everything that you remember Metroid 1 and 2 being, and just taken to the nth degree. Everything is amped up. Yet it is not too hard. I mean, if you know what you're doing, it's pretty cool. I mean, you'll progress at an even pace. And, you know, the first one of those games where, like, you can't get to an area, you have to go and find an item that'll help you get there later on in the game, and then you can backtrack and, oh, look at all this stuff I missed, you know, I got skipped over because I didn't have that little swing beam or whatever. I didn't have that little speed boot thing where you can run over the blocks that break. It's a fantastic game, one of my all-time favorites. I still play it all the time. I keep playing all the games that I really like over games that I should be playing, like the games I've never played before. But picked this one up back in the day. I want to say this was probably like the 5th or 6th game I ever bought for the Super Nintendo, and that is Super Off-Road. I was just buying any old thing because it was a brand new console, and I was trying to build up a library. So, you know, friends could come over and play games with me and stuff. This is a port of an arcade game that came out on the NES. This is like the upgraded version, and it's a lot of fun. It's just like racing, but your car is really, really tiny. It's kind of like playing RC Pro Am. Shit's happening outside. Excuse me. Ugh. Okay, it's like if you were to play RC Pro Am, but pull the camera way back so you can see the entire track. And, excuse me, ooh, I got the gas. It is a lot of fun. I love this game. And my favorite thing about this game is the fantastic music. I was a big fan of music on the Nintendo. You know, if it was done well, it was great. You know, like Gremlins 2, stuff like that, stuff by Sunsoft. But every single game that I would buy for the Super Nintendo, I recorded the music onto a tape and listened to it all the time because I love the music that the Super Nintendo would be able to produce. This game has a fantastic soundtrack. Absolutely. And it's fun as hell. I want to say this is probably like the 4th game I ever bought for my Super Nintendo, and that is Super R-Type. This game is hard as hell, and it has a ton of slowdown, which is probably one of the reasons why I started to lose interest in shmups back then. I liked the game, don't get me wrong, but I kept on saying, like, well, if this is what this console has to offer in the way of this genre, I don't think I'm going to like it very much, because, you know, if they're all going to be all slow and shit, because, you know, I remember Life Force having a lot of slowdown on the NES. That didn't really deter me from playing that type of game on that console, but when it came to the Super Nintendo, I kind of like lost interest because I like this game, but I was like, I don't think I need to play any other ones because if this is as good as it's going to get, there you go. But it's a port, or it's a enhanced version of the original R-Type, obviously. Music, once again, is absolutely fantastic. The graphics are great, it's just it has a ton of slowdown, which is the big issue. Pick this up specifically so I could stream it with Epic Dice Studio, my friend Charlie, on my YouTube channel. We used to play this cooperatively all the time back in the day, and I absolutely loved it, and that is Super Smash TV. Captain Algebra streamed this with Megadan once, and I think they beat it like in one stream session together. It had been so long since me and Charlie had played this that we were just constantly dying when we were streaming it ourselves. But you know what? It didn't mean that it's not fun. I absolutely love this game. It's like a top-down. It's a port of an arcade game. It came out on the NES too. I'm really curious to play it on the NES to see how that works. But these characters that are like in a Running Man style game show where they're basically going to get killed unless you kill the people trying to kill you first. And there's mutants and monsters everywhere, but there's also great prizes to be won, like VCRs and bars of gold and toasters and stuff. It's a lot of fun. I really, really enjoy this one. And the music is super freaking catchy. And you know what? The catchphrases that the host has in the game are just... We still quote them to each other, me and Charlie. Great money, big money, big prizes. I love it. It's great. What's up, Telesplash? How's it going? Dude, we need to do another Friday the 13th stream together with everybody. That was awesome the other night. Which game are you talking about there, Krillin? Welcome, Completionist. How's it going? Happy Halloween to everybody also. Hope you're having a better Halloween than we are in Chicago because it was snowing all day long here. We got about 3 inches. Yeah, that was so much fun, dude. I have something I would like to ask you if you would like to be interested in participating in one of my collabs that I want to do. So if you're interested, let me know and I will throw you the deets. Super Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, and Super Star Wars Return of the Jedi. I talked about these when I was talking about Indiana Jones' Greatest Adventures, and these are great. The games that came out for the NES based on Star Wars I didn't think were that great. I mean, they were okay, but they didn't feel like Star Wars. It didn't feel like you were playing through the movies. These, on the other hand, goddamn. Yeah, Super Star Wars blew my mind a little bit. It had the music from the movies in it, yeah, like 16-bit chiptune versions, but it sounded like the music from the movies, which the NES game did not have. You're playing through environments from the movies. You're meeting characters from the movies. Everything looks like it does, like it's supposed to, and, you know, it should. Great. Hard as hell, but awesome. And there's stuff they had to add in to make it fill out for a game, like, you know, the giant Sarlacc vagina. I don't remember fighting that in the original movie, but it's in there. Same with Empire Strikes Back. Amped up the 3D vehicle levels that Super Star Wars had by doing the Hoth battle. Yeah, it's fantastic. And also having the asteroid chase scene with the Millennium Falcon. And then, like, everything just came to a head in this one. And this one is probably my favorite of the three because... Not my favorite movie in the trilogy, but this is definitely my favorite game because all the different things and different characters you can play as. You can switch characters in these games too, by the way. You can play as Luke, Leia, Han, Chewbacca. In this one, you can play as Wicket. And like the Death Star trench run in this one is really cool, going through the tunnels through the Death Star to get to that core. And the Millennium Falcon scene, because instead of it being... like, you know, a target reticle that you're moving around. You have, like, the Millennium Falcon in the front of the screen, and it, like, moves around in these weird kind of arcing motions. It's really neat, and it's super... These games are super fun. Hard as hell, but you know what? Everyone complains about the difficulty, but I beat every one of these back in the day multiple times because it's awesome. I used to be a huge Star Wars fan back then. You'll be in Chicago in February. Hello! We should get together. Take you to all the good shops. I don't know who you're asking about a collab with, but I'm always open for some collabs. Awesome. I'm working on another one. It might be a while before I actually use the footage that I would ask you to do, but I'll talk to you about it offline. Super Turrican, one of my favorite games from back in the day. Not only are the graphics great and the play controls great, it's a run and gun like Contra, extremely psycho version of it. The music in this game is composed by Chris Hulsbeck, who has basically worked on every single iteration of Turrican for every console out there. It started off, I do believe, on the Commodore 64, and there's been like ports of it for every console out there. And he has composed the music for each and every one of them, which means he's recomposing his Commodore 64 music over and over and over again to take advantage of what each console can do, which is kind of impressive that he's stuck with it as long as he has. And I think he still does. Whenever there's like a new port of it, he works on it. He released like a Kickstarter to release a vinyl soundtrack to the original game, which I almost bid on, but I chose not to. But the version for this, I love the music in this game. It's fantastic. The game is really fast, fantastic. I keep saying fantastic. Don't ask me why. I'm excited because this game gives me the feels. I loved Contra 3, the Alien Wars back in the day, but when I got this, I was like, Contra 3, what? This. I highly recommend it if you can get a copy of it. The sequel, I will probably never own because it is freaking beyond expensive, dude. Hello, YouTube, back in the day gamers here. What's up, Tony? How's it going? Welcome, welcome. Okay, so one of the people that... Excuse me, I need a drink. One of the people that convinced me to get back into video game collecting in 2013 was Gamester81. And to say thank you for him to reignite my excitement about this hobby, I took part in his Indiegogo campaign to help his channel out, and I got the Gamester81 video game for the ColecoVision that he had made. But now he actually is part of a company called Retrovision, which is making brand new games for old consoles. And one of them is like a character that his company came up with, and there's, I think, games for every console out there with this character in it. And I wanted to get at least one, and I decided to go with the Super Nintendo. So we got Sydney Hunter and the Caverns of Death. It's a brand new game for the Super Nintendo, developed by Gamester81's company, CollectorVision. And it's a side-scrolling platformer pseudo-puzzle game. Reminds me a lot of like Miner 2049er or like Super Pitfall, stuff like that. Where you play as like this Indiana Jones guy who's running through these caves trying to get treasure and whatnot. And it doesn't look like much in the pictures, but when you actually play the game, it's really impressive. The animations are great. The music is actually really, really good. I really enjoyed this one a lot. And I was lucky because right after I bought the copy of this, because I kept on saying like, oh, I keep on remembering that the games on his website, sell out after a certain period of time. I should probably jump on that Super Nintendo one while it's still available. And like the day after I ordered my copy, it sold out. And I got super lucky. I haven't bought any of the other Sydney Hunter games. I would like to get the NES one. I would like to get the one for the Master System, I think. There's a Master System version. But if there's like a Game Boy version, woo. Recently got this in August as a gift. My friends, Justin and Elizabeth, go to Gen Con every year. I used to go with them, but now I've kind of like lost interest in like the whole board game, card game thing, because video games have taken over my life. And I used to be able to get video games there, but the last time I went, the pickings were really slim, and I was just kind of like, yeah, there's really nothing there for me anymore. Ever since I stopped going, every year they send me pictures while they're there. Hey, look, there's a guy here with a table filled with video games. You want us to buy you anything? And I'd be like, God damn it, why didn't I go? So last year they sent me a picture, and I picked up one game. I didn't want them to spend a lot of money. I was just kind of like, yeah, if you want to pick up that Star Trek Next Generation Game Boy game for me, yeah, do that, because it was like $20. This summer, they sent me a picture of this table, and I was just kind of like, oh, God damn it. There were so many games on that table that I wanted. And I told them to pick up like 6 of them, and I was like, if you don't want to do what I'm asking you to do right now, just tell me to fuck off, and I'll do it. But they were like, no, if you want, let us know what you want, just as long as you're going to pay me back. I'm like, yeah, of course I'll pay you back. So I gave him like 6 things. He forgot to buy one of them. Another one, he sent me a text saying there's no manual. I said, forget it. Everything else he bought me. And the only ones I ended up paying for were a couple, it was like 2 Saturn games and Strider for the Genesis. I brought money to pay him back for this, but they're like, nope, this is for your birthday. We brought it. We you wanted it, but we bought it for you for your birthday instead of you paying for it. And that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters. I've been trying to get a copy of this for the longest time. It's always pretty expensive, and I've seen it at the Midwest Gaming Classic every year that I've gone, and it's always way too much. I think this was like $50 or $60 at the game at Gen Con, which is why I said, yeah, do it, because that's cheaper than I've ever seen it. But I did have this game back in the day. We used to play it all the time. I can't remember the name of the female character that you can play in here, but she does like a butt stomp move where she like turns around and like shoots her ass out and like hits you with her butt. And what she like the phrase she says when she does it sounds like she says, "Whose dog am I?" And we used to like make fun of it all the time. Like every once in a while, like we'd be standing in line and one of us would like back up and like hit someone with our ass, or like one of our friends with our ass and go, "Whose dog am I?" It was funny. No homo. But it's a one-on-one fighting game with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle characters and some other characters I do not remember from the cartoon, like the shark dude. I do not know, Armagon or whatever his name was. I don't remember that guy from the cartoon. I'd probably given up on the cartoon at that point. But I was actually playing this yesterday. This is the first time I booted it up since Justin and Elizabeth bought it for me for my birthday. And I forgot how freaking hard this game is. I can't even beat the first person. I'm great at Street Fighter. I really am. But this game is so freaking cheap, the AI. I have to turn the difficulty down to 0. Because at level 3, there's 10 levels, I think. At level 3, the game is just kind of like, you are not getting any further. You are not progressing at all. So, yeah, it's hard as hell. I forgot that. But it's still fun. The graphics are great. The controls really well. Terminator 2. Got the new Terminator movie coming out. Really excited. Not excited about this game. It's better than the Genesis version, I'll say. I did a collaboration where we're talking about bad license games on my channel a while back. And what was it? Sheldon from Retro Games, Vinyl, and Beer. This was the game that he picked. I don't think it's as bad as everyone makes it out to be. It's not good. It's definitely not good. It's not terrible. It's playable. It's a little frustrating at times. I actually really kind of enjoy the NES game. The Game Boy game is the best Terminator 2 game out there. That's not the arcade game. But, yeah, it's alright. Licensed games. Here is the third game in that Soul Blazer trilogy I was talking about earlier, and that is Terranigma. So you got Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, and Terranigma. The thing is, this game never came out in the US, so you couldn't actually play the full trilogy in the US. This only came out in Japan. This is a repro. I got the cartridge from Thunder Cards and Games. My friend Matt Robbins, I don't know if he still has the website at all, but he would sell like loose games for all the different consoles, and he also had certain repros on hand. I think it was Black Friday a few years ago. He sent out an email saying like, use this code on my website and you'll get a certain discount on like the repros and stuff. I took advantage and I picked this one up. And then I got the box and the manual from Uncle Tusk because I roll like that. Everything SBCIB. It's another action RPG, and I haven't played it a whole lot. I tried it when it first came out. It works perfectly fine on my Retro Freak, which is great. And it's pretty fun. I enjoyed what I liked. Or I enjoyed what I liked. I'm out. I'm done. That's it. Stream's over. I can't talk. I liked what I saw. Yeah. But the thing was, I didn't have Soul Blazer or Illusion of Gaia at the point. This is the first game that I bought when I got back into collecting. I got the other two later. So I was not willing to play this until I can get the other two games first. So, because I like to play the games in order. So now that I have all three games and I freaking set aside some time to actually play these damn things, I will do so. I don't know why I still have this because it's not that good. This is like when I first got back into collecting, I hit up this retro game store that isn't in operation anymore. I've talked about it a lot on my channel. It was called People Play Games. And I was trying to get some games to add to my collection, cheap ones at first. And I was like, why not buy Tetris 2? Because you love Tetris, Chris. You know you do. I play it all the time. I play it on my mobile, play it anywhere I can. I never played Tetris 2 back in the day, and it's not that good. It's like, they changed what Tetris is all about. And you know what? Tetris is about leaving the rules alone and just presenting it in a different way. and like, oh, we're gonna introduce all these new shapes and stuff like that, and have it kind of be like Dr. Mario a little bit. Like, yeah, no, just don't. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We got Thunder Spirits, which I think is supposed to be part of the Thunder Force series. I think, or at least it was made by the same development team. I don't think it's a port of anything. I don't think this has anything to do with Thunder Force on the Genesis. I could be wrong, but side-scrolling shmup or horizontally scrolling shmup. It is friggin' stupid hard, but I like it. The graphics are really cool, and it controls pretty fine. It's just difficult as all hell. I like it. Can't complain. Got this at last year's Midwest Gaming Classic, The Tick, because I'm a licensed whore, like I keep on saying. This is a beat-em-up that's trying to be like Batman Returns. Not nearly as good as Batman Returns, but I do believe this has two-player simultaneous fighting. Because there's a picture of you and Arthur fighting alongside on the back. But this is based on the Saturday morning cartoon, which I absolutely loved. I still watch that on the regular. And the live action shows, they're just as good. But the cartoon, man, D. Flattermouse. American Made? No, you're still afraid to commit. Just random stuff pops into my head from this show. I absolutely love it. So I had to have this because I'm a huge fan of The Tick, the comics, the shows, whatnot. I wish there would be a movie of this. Chairface! And it is a side-scrolling beat-em-up, and it is not that good, but I like the license, so therefore I had to have it. And I think it is also available on the Genesis. Okay, so here's a weird thing. This has a story behind it. So, we got Time Trax. Time Trax was a really shitty Time Cop ripoff show from the 90s. I watched one episode of it. One of my friends I used to hang out with, every time there was a new sci-fi show that would come out, he would tape the pilot episode. I'd go over to his house afterwards and we'd watch it, and then we'd both be like, I'd keep watching it or I wouldn't keep watching it. He showed me this. He liked it. I thought it was garbage, and that was it. And I did not realize that there was a game based on this until I got back into collecting in 2013. I like The Tick. There's some great comedy in that game. Yeah, oh man, I wish that they would bring that cartoon back. Netflix, I know that Amazon owns the live action thing. I think they just canceled the show actually, which kind of sucks because I like that too. Bring the cartoon back, Netflix, please. So I was hanging out with my friends and we're at a Half Price Books, and I find the cartridge to this by itself in their like expensive games case. And at this point, like I said, back when I got back into collecting in 2013 is when I learned that there was a game based on this show, and I was like, why did that ever happen? Why was that a thing? But I looked into it because I was curious, and I found out the game is really expensive because it came out really late in the Super Nintendo's lifespan. So there weren't a whole lot of copies. But I found this cartridge in their case at Half Price Books for $10. And I looked it up on eBay on my phone, and I was like, this game goes for like $60 by itself. What's going on? So I said, for $10, I'll buy it, and then I'll flip it somewhere. I'll make some money off of it because Half Price Books, you slipping. So I picked it up. And Nintendo actually was really interested in buying this off of me until I played it. So I was like, yeah, I should play it before I sell it. Maybe I would want to keep it. What the hell? So I played it, and I actually really enjoyed it. It's like a side-scrolling action game, a little bit of adventure-type action. Or a little adventure... Oh, God. A little bit of an adventure-type gameplay thing going on in it. It's pretty cool. The music is really good. And the graphics are cool too. There's a lot of really cool effects, like layers over the gameplay and stuff like that, like smoke and shit. It's pretty cool, and I enjoyed it so much that I told Nintendo, I'm like, yeah, sorry, I'm not going to sell it. I'm actually going to keep it. So the only thing was, a complete copy of this game was like $300 frickin' bucks. I wish Nintendo would bring his channel back, dude. I really do, but he kind of like got into a funk, and now he's actually selling off his collection. He's basically just playing Switch games now. He's like selling all his retro stuff. I bought plenty of stuff from over the years, but I really wish he would start making bring his channel back from the dead. So a complete copy of this game goes for about $300. I don't want to spend $300 on a game based on a crappy TV show from the 90s. So what do? Because I just have the cartridge. No one was selling the box by itself, or the legit box or the manual. The manual alone would go for $100. I found that on eBay one time. So I found a website where they make reproduction boxes. So I was just like, yeah, so I don't have this lonely loose cart just sitting off on my shelf amongst all the CIB games. I just had a repro box made for me for $5, and I can keep it in that on the shelf, so it keeps everything all looking nice. Don't have a manual for this. Don't really care. The game's not that good that I'm going to spend that kind of money on it. So, that is Time Tracks. And you can kind of see some of the gameplay on it. It's pretty cool. I enjoy it. It's not bad. Is it $300 good? F no. Then we got Toy Story. I really wasn't interested in buying this until I found out that Psygnosis, you got the little owl icon right there. Psygnosis worked on this game, and there's also one for the Genesis. And it's all pre-rendered CGI graphics, kind of like Donkey Kong Country and Killer Instinct. And it's a side-scrolling platformer. It's okay. It's a little kid's game, honestly. But, it's 3D stuff. And it's a 32 meg cartridge. You know how expensive this was when it first came out? This was like $80. Eat a dick. But for a little kid's game, it's actually not too bad. Get over there. Okay, here we go. I got this at the Midwest Gaming Classic 3 or 4 years ago. Tough Enough. Another side-scrolling beat-em-up ripoff of Final Fight. This one's not that... No, this isn't the beat-em-up. This is the one-on-one fighting game. Oh, I'm thinking of... Oh, Jesus. Not Rival Turf. I talked about it in the last video. Not important. Tough Enough's a one-on-one fighting game. It's not that good. This one is not that good. Grab the manual. For starters, I was kind of ticked off that this one has this label on it that I cannot get off for the life of me. And this manual is like, what? I should have thought something was up when the guy the guy that was selling this refused to let me take a look at the inside. He was like, yeah, here's the cartridge. And he said the manual was in there and I could see it in the box. He just wouldn't show it to me. Oh yeah, it's because this used to be a rental from a place called Video Spot, and some little kid stuck it up his ass. So, I was not happy when I got home. But it was cheap. So, I was like, I'll eventually get a replacement manual for this. But, as you can see, since it's been so long since I originally got this game, that's not exactly a high priority. But, yeah, the game's not that great. This was one of the first games I got for my Super Nintendo. This might be maybe the 6th or 7th game I got, but it's Ultraman. I know the game is not well liked nowadays, but I used to be a huge fan of the Ultraman character. I used to watch Ultraman. I'd come home from school, and there was this channel that was a UHF channel, and it would be like Underdog. Then it would be the Monkeys, the live-action Monkeys TV show. Then it would be Lancelot Link, that stupid ape or little chimpanzee detective, and then 2 episodes of Ultraman back to back. And I used to watch every one of them. I thought it was fantastic, and I never really liked Power Rangers. Why? I was too old for that at that point. But it's a one-on-one fighting game, one of the first one-on-one fighting games out there. This is long before Street Fighter 2. It's just really clunky, and it's kind of dumb, because in order to win a fight, you have to get your enemy past a certain point, and also build up your super attack, and you absolutely have to perform that super attack to win the fight. And sometimes you'll get hit, and it'll drain your super attack, and you got to build that crap up all over again, and it kind of stinks having to do that over and over again. And sometimes the enemies are super cheap. The people you fight, they suck. It's not the greatest game, but I still kind of enjoy it just from a nostalgic point of view. It's not. I understand it's poo-poo. I get it. I got this from my friend Brett, Felix the Brett, from the Batterad Retro Nerdatorium on Facebook. Every once in a while, he sends me a text message, and he'll be like, hey, got a lot of games to sell if you're interested in any of them. Otherwise, I'm going to put them up at my store. And I usually buy a few from him every time he sends me a message. One of which was Ultima the False Prophet. I think this is Ultima 6. And it's an RPG, old school RPG, top down, everything. Way better looking than the PC versions, because my dad used to play every single one of these Ultima games back when I was a little kid, and I would sit there and watch him play them, and they had the most basic graphics. It was like ASCII graphics or whatever they were called. At least the first one looked like that. So this is a huge visual upgrade. And I played it for a little bit to see if the game's still saved and all that, and it's okay. I kind of want to get the Black Gate, even though I think that's Ultima 7. That one I know is really expensive. I only paid like $30 for this. So one of my goals is to get all the Ultima games because nostalgia, because, you know, my dad used to love playing those games. So why not? This is a new Super Nintendo game. Brand new game. Came out maybe like a year ago. I bought... My copy of this showed up when I saw Baby Driver in the theater. And Baby Driver, I think, it's 2 years ago maybe. And then Radical Reggie warned me not to buy it right after I bought it. Okay? Let me explain. So it's called Unholy Night. And it's a brand new one-on-one fighting game that's kind of horror themed. Does it have a subtitle? Yeah, The Darkness Hunter. I guess this was supposed to be a Dreamcast game or something, and they got, or no, I can't remember the story he told me, or something like they were trying, the game was supposed to be more, but they couldn't fit it on the cartridge or something like that. I remember he mentioned something about Dreamcast. I can't remember. But yeah, the game is like half of what they wanted it to be, and it shows, because when it finally did show up, I played it, and I was able to beat every single opponent by doing a low kick. Over and over again. I spammed low kick and every character would fall for it each time. And I was like, wow, AI in this game is absolutely terrible. But it looks good and it sounds good. It just doesn't play very good. But it's kind of cool. And it's neat to just have, like, you know, tell somebody, you know, like, they're still making brand new Super Nintendo games in this day and age. And here's one of them. Not sad that I have it. So Johnny Millennium on Happy Console Gamer talks about this game a lot on his channel. And I saw one video where he was like playing it again, and I was like, I kind of think I want that because I like shmups now. And excuse me, Chipotle. When it showed up, I started playing it, and I was like, wow, Johnny, really? This isn't. I don't think it's that great. I don't know what the hell you're all on about. UN Squadron. Yeah, it's a Capcom game. I think it's an earlier Capcom game too, but it's based on an arcade shmup where you play as like a fighter plane, and you're taking out other fighter planes and stuff like that. Honestly, it looks good and it sounds good. I just didn't think it was that great of a shmup. I was actually kind of underwhelmed by it. So I was like, Johnny Millennium, done with you. But he's still a cool channel. I love that channel. Urban Strike, the sequel to Jungle Strike. I like how they tell you the order that these come in by not having them numbered. Because you got Desert Strike, and then when Jungle Strike came out, it says the sequel to Desert Strike, and now Urban Strike says the sequel to Jungle Strike. Obviously, this takes place in an urban environment, not the desert and not the jungle. But it's the exact same game. It's the exact same isometric point of view, but now you have all these new ships you can, or vehicles you can play in, like this stealth helicopter, and you're going for drug lords and stuff like that. Or was it a terrorist this time? Yeah, first the desert madman, then the jungle drug lord, and now evil challenges the strike corps right here in America. Ruthless media mogul and political maverick H.R. Malone secretly plans to destabilize the U.S. government and crush his rebellion at all costs. Okay. Actually pretty fun. I talked about this in the Sega pickup, the Sega Genesis one. When I sold my whole Genesis and Sega CD and consoles to get that 3DO at that one store, which was Software Junction, where I met Daniel Pacina. This was the other game that I bought that day that I never opened. I bought Urban Strike and I bought Dune for the Sega CD. I think at Best Buy. And then went to Software Junction to see what they had in the way of video games. And then got all psyched up about the 3DO. And I never opened this. I sold it directly. It was the Genesis version though. Sold this directly to them unopened, as well as that copy of Dune that I had bought that day. But I got my money back, so it wasn't that big of a deal. I should have just returned them and used that cash to go and get the 3DO. Whatever. Here's an LJN game that I really enjoy, based on a movie series you've probably never heard of. Warlock. Back in, I want to say 1990. I think the movie was shot like in 88 or 89, and it wasn't released until 1990. The guy who directed Warlock was Steve Miner, who directed Friday the 13th 2 and 3, ended up directing Halloween H2O and Lake Placid and Forever Young with Jamie Lee Curtis and Mel Gibson. What? Yeah, he directed Warlock, and it's like a adventure horror movie about an evil warlock played by Julian Sands, who is being pursued by a witch hunter. I cannot remember the actor's name for the life of me right now. He was in With Nail and I just can't remember his name. He's in the new Star Wars movie. He's in Rise of Skywalker. And this is kind of sort of based on it. The poster itself is based on the sequel, Warlock the Armageddon. And I think this is supposed to be some sort of a weird prequel where you play as a wizard who is hunting the warlock. And it's actually really fun. The animation is great. The spells that you can get are great. It's a really cool action platformer. I really enjoy this one, but nobody knows what the hell Warlock was, and I thought it was a strange license for LJN to go after. Of all the movies that you can go after, Warlock, it's like this independent horror action movie franchise. What? But, you know what? I was a fan of the movies, at least the first two. I saw the second one in the theater, which was actually pretty fun. That's kind of like watching Hellraiser 3. Well, the same guy who directed Hellraiser 3 directed the sequel. So I was really excited to see this come out, and I was working at that video store in the mid-90s when it was released, and I convinced my boss to buy a copy of it, and of course, the day it showed up, I took it home to play myself, so I could talk to customers if they asked me about it and tell them what it was, and I enjoyed the hell out of it and went out and got a copy of my own. So it is a side-scrolling platform action game, kind of like a run and gun, but a little bit of beat-em-up stuff too. It is fantastic, and it does not get the love it deserves. Definite diamond in the rough. You heard it here, people. Here we got Warp Speed, which is like Wing Commander Light. I talked about this in a video I did on, I think it was on Nintendo's channel. I can't remember. I did a collaboration with Nintendo, and I talked about this. It's like Wing Commander, but not Wing Commander. I mean, it's like budget Wing Commander. It's okay. It's a first-person spaceship shooter, and the graphics are pretty cool. It's just really simple. There's not much to it. It's basically, you have this map, and the map is like divided into cubes or like squares, and you pick like each section is like a sector, and you can see if there's like something that is of interest. Like there's a bunch of enemy ships in this sector. There's like a planet over here you might want to look at over here. There's something going on over here, like your headquarters is here. And you just go to those sectors, fight enemies, and then go to the next one. And it's really not much to it. It's very simple. But graphically, it's impressive. But it holds no candle to Wing Commander or Wing Commander The Secret Missions. Okay, so when I was, if you saw my Mad Max rant video from like years ago, from back in like 2013 or 2014 or whatever that was, or just when I was talking about Mad Max in the NES collection video, I had a vendetta against Mindscape. And I had played Wing Commander at a friend's house on their PC, and I really liked it. So when I heard it was coming out to the Super Nintendo, I was excited because I was like, yes! I can finally play that at home and I don't have to go to someone else's house to play it. So I picked it up. I was actually out on a date with a girl that I worked with at Kmart. We went out to dinner, went, I think, to Best Buy or something, or we went somewhere. I can't remember which store we got this at. Picked this up, went to a movie. I think we saw Bram Stoker's Dracula that night. And then I came home and popped this in, and the first thing that pops up on the screen is the Mindscape logo, and I did not even notice that it was on the box. So the Mindscape logo pops up, and I went, fuck. It's like, God damn it. And from that point on, this game was just completely overtaken by my dislike of Mindscape. And like, I couldn't do anything about it, and I ended up selling it because I didn't want to play it anymore, because I was still pissed at Mindscape for the way they treated me when I beta tested Mad Max, and that they shafted me on a game because I told them their game was shit. And, I didn't even realize that my name was in the manual at that time. I didn't find out about it until like 2009, I want to say. But I got over it. And actually, Wing Commander on the Super Nintendo was really, really good. So it's like it's a first person inside the ship, shmup, where you're playing up against a Kilrathi. It's very cinematic, lots of really good cutscenes and all that, and characters you can interact with and have conversations with. Wing Commander 3 is probably one of my favorite video games of all time. It is. It's on my top 10 list. I mean, yeah. Go check that out. That's from like years ago. I made a video on that a while back. And it's great. It's fantastic. It's a really fun game with a great story. And the thing was, there were add-ons to the PC version of Wing Commander new missions, all this kind of stuff. Can't do that on the Super Nintendo. Can't have add-ons, so all the extra material was given its own game as the secret missions, and it plays and looks exactly the same. It's just all that extra material in a playing put together as like a side story thing to the original Wing Commander, because there is a real Wing Commander too, obviously, if I talk about part 3. Duh. I got this from a friend of mine off of Facebook, Wolfchild. I always wanted to play this one back in the day, which is why I bought it from him. I got it for, I think, $20, and it kind of stinks. It's a side-scrolling platformer where you play as this guy who can turn into a wolf every once in a while, and it's just not very well developed. Virgin Games did not have the best track record with me, other than like Aladdin on the Genesis. A lot of their games are kind of crappy. This is one of them. And then I was talking about Biometal in the last collection video, last Thursday, where I said that back in the day, in the mid-90s, toward the end of the Super Nintendo's life, Activision started releasing games from Japan, or buying games from Japan to release over here for the Super Nintendo, but they knew that the games were like on their own, just kind of like, okay. So they had to do something to make people want to buy them, because otherwise it would just get lost in the shuffle. They had to do something to make these games stick out so they would sell. So what was their solution? Let's license music from some really popular bands of the time and digitize that music, make like 16-bit chiptune versions of it, and slip them into the games. No. That wasn't part of the game originally in Japan. So when it came to Biometal, which was a pretty average shmup, I mean, it's fun, but there's nothing special about it, they decided to license 2 Unlimited. That techno band that they still play at, Are You Ready for This? At basketball games and shit. And then this game here, Excalibur 2097, they licensed a band named Psychosonic and put a bunch of their songs from their self-titled album in here. I never heard of Psychosonic before buying this game, but back then, techno was kind of like this new thing. I had just seen Cool World, and I kind of got into electronic music back then, and I was kind of into it. But Psychosonic really interested me for some reason. The cover of their album I thought was really cool too. So I got the album, listened to it, and I was like, oh man, I gotta hear what this is like in the video game. So I went out and bought a copy of the game too. And the game is a side-scrolling run and gun. That's more like a hack and slash. He plays this guy that looks like Jake Armitage from Shadowrun with a sword, and you're just going around hacking up people left and right. And you know what? The songs from Psychosonic are actually really well represented in here. A couple of them got bastardized a little bit to make it sound more like something from an action game, but for the most part, it's pretty cool. The game itself is okay. I really like it, don't get me wrong. It's just there's really nothing special about it outside of the fact that it has like a licensed soundtrack, which is really unusual for, the Super Nintendo era. But I enjoy it. And the last game I have for the Super Nintendo to talk about tonight is X-Men Mutant Apocalypse. This is a beat-em-up by Capcom that lets you play as, let's see here, Cyclops, Psylocke, Wolverine, Beast, and Gambit. And you're taking on Apocalypse and all of his minions. And it's really cool. I like it. The sprites are freaking huge. It's a really fun beat-em-up. It just gets really hard really fast. And we had this at the video store I worked at, but I never played it there. I ended up, first time I played it was when I bought this, because I've always wanted it. And it's freaking hard as hell, man. It is. It was like frustrating me how I was just like basically stopped in my tracks at one point. I could not go any further no matter how hard I tried. So it's going to take a lot of practice to get back into that. But there you go. That's the last of my Super Nintendo games. So tomorrow I have another live stream. Tomorrow I was, normally on the last day of the month I'll do my live pickup video, but Thursday is the day where I do these collection videos now, and I want to keep on that schedule. So I had to bump my live stream for my October pickups to tomorrow. And so tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central, I'm going to do my October pickups. And next week for the video game collection, I'm going to talk about my PC Engine, TurboGrafx 16, and TurboGrafx CD/PC Engine CD games, as well as something else, which will probably end up being the 3DO. Because I have a lot of Turbo and PC Engine games. not enough to fill out like an hour-long video. Not a lot. Not that much. So I need something else to talk about too. So it probably will end up being the 3DO. Maybe? I'll think about it. You'll find out when the reminder thumbnail pops up on my page what I ended up going with. So I'm assuming it's going to be TurboGrafx, PC Engine, and 3DO. So, yeah. I think so. I think that's the way it's going to go. I really do. You heard it here first. Yeah. Okay, so thanks everyone for coming tonight and participating in this live stream with me. I love chatting with everybody while I'm talking about all these games in my collection. I don't know if I should feel ashamed or really happy that I have this much stuff. I'm a hoarder. What can I say? But come back tomorrow for the live stream for my October pickups. Next week for the TurboGrafx games. And still working on that movies that would make great video games part 4 collab. Had a little issue. I talked about it a little bit last week where I had to bump one of the YouTubers because of an issue and replace him with somebody else. I got the video for the replacement on Tuesday. So I can finally start to finish that one up and get that out because I really want to work on a 5th and final episode in that series. So that's going to happen. So thank you everybody for coming tonight. Have a good night. And until next time, I'm Chris, the old ass retro gamer, signing off. Good night, everybody.